and welcome to the second day of the Guyana Extractive Sector Transparency Week. My name is Kirisa Baslai. I am the host for today, and I'm just delighted to have all of you, dear participants, joining us this morning. We have something very exciting in store for you for the whole day, and we are going to start strong today with one of our greatest presenters talking about Guyana's EITI and giving us brief overview and accomplishments and some of the challenges today. Please welcome Dr. Rudy R. Jadupat from the Guyana Extractive Transparency Initiative. He will talk about the Guyana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, which has been playing an important role since 2017 in Guyana. This multi-stakeholder initiative is an important asset to Guyana's transparency initiative. It has been working steadily to promote and create avenues for the disclosure of key information on the extractives, including and not limited to contracts, licenses, revenue collection, and allocation. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Rudy R. Jadupat, PhD, from the Guyana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Kitty, for that wonderful introduction. My job here today is very simple, and I have the honor of bringing to you some of the accomplishments. I don't like to call it accomplishments because we have a lot more to accomplish, but some of the things that have been achieved to date in terms of the GYEITI and some of the challenges we have faced. Let me just, for the sake of a comprehensive understanding of GYEITI, give you a brief perspective, of the historical perspective. In 2010, the Latin American EITI director was passing through on his way to Suriname. So he stopped by and met with the Prime Minister in 2010 here in Guyana on May the 4th, 2010. And they agreed in principle to that Guyana should consider becoming a partner or member or something to do with the EITI implementation process. Then 2 years passed and not much had happened, but in 2012, a memorandum of understanding was signed between the government of Guyana and the EITI. In 2014, a scoping study to examine the feasibility of EITI implementation in Guyana was commissioned. That report came out in 2015, and it is available. The government changed. We had a change of government in 2015. And the new government made a cabinet decision to continue the EITI process. So the continuation of the process really meant that the EITI requirement 1 must be satisfied before any country can become eligible for submitting the candidature application. So that is the prerequisite. One of the most important things that had to be done was the government must make a public announcement of its intent and commitment to seriously implement the EITI standard if it is accepted. Secondly, the government must establish a multi-stakeholder group, must agree to work with civil society representatives, private sector industry representatives together and form a multi-stakeholder group, which is the center of the EITI process. Decision-making body of the EITI and GYEITI, in this case, is the multi-stakeholder group. The government also assigned the Ministry of Natural Resources as the lead agency, and that is one of the requirements of the EITI standard also, to implement the EITI in Guyana. That's the lead agency. And they also appointed the Minister of Natural Resources, a very high government official, as per the standard, as the EITI champion in Guyana. So there we had that first step. the MSG, the multi-stakeholder group, was supposed and did follow certain specific mandate of the EITI standard. That is, the members must be nominated and appointed in an open and transparent manner. That process went on with the help of the World Bank, consultants, with the help of the Carter Center here in Guyana, and the multi-stakeholder group was formed sometime around November 2016. The next step was to establish an EITI Secretariat. The Guyeiti Secretariat was established on the 1st of February 2017. And we started to put all the documentations together, preparing for the time when we're going to be able to satisfy the requirements to submit our EITI candidature application. So the multi-stakeholder group was launched officially on the 15th of February 2017. One of the first steps that the multi-stakeholder group did, as is required by the EITI standard, was to formulate and approve its own terms of reference. That was done, and monthly meetings were agreed to be held by the multi-stakeholder group. So for the two meetings held by the Guyeiti multi-stakeholder group. The minutes of those meetings are available at the Secretariat. The decisions of each of the meetings of the multi-stakeholder group are publicly available on our website, guyeiti.org. Also, the terms of reference of the multi-stakeholder group is publicly available on our website, guyeiti.org. The initial members of the Guyeiti MSG were considered by the minister then, Guyeiti, to be equal in numbers for each sector. So we had 4 persons representing industry, 4 from civil society, and 4 from government. And each one of those persons had an assigned alternate. According to the terms of reference of the MSG, alternates can also attend meetings. However, they do not have, if it comes to that, the right to vote if their primary member is present. So most of the meetings had representatives, primary representatives, and also alternates, which made it more interesting and, what should I say, provided a very solid foundation for the work of the Guyeiti. So there was need for capacity building because, as you know, EITI is something new in this country, and we didn't understand the EITI standard that well and how to implement it. So we were fortunate to get assistance from the Trinidad EITI, our neighbor. They came, we held symposiums and seminars. Also, the EITI International Secretariat provided capacity building opportunities for the multi-stakeholder group members and for the staff of the Secretariat. By the way, the staff of the Secretariat at first was yours truly, the national coordinator, and the deputy coordinator, Ms. Diane Barker, an attorney at law. After that, we were provided an administrative assistant, and then later on, a communications officer. So right now, we have 4 persons at the Guyeiti National Secretariat. We look forward to having greater capacity, and that would depend also on the budget and on the Ministry of Natural Resources. The legal basis for the existence of the Guyeiti is provided by that cabinet decision, which states that the Secretariat is a part of the Ministry of Natural Resources. So we are not completely independent. We do not have our own budget. The staff of the Secretariat is being provided by the Ministry of Natural Resources. So that's in a nutshell how we legally function. The decisions of the multi-stakeholder group are executed as is mandated by the EITI standard by the Guyeiti National Secretariat. So we do not operate on our own here. We execute the decisions of the multi-stakeholder group. So what has been done since? What are some of the other requirements that we had to satisfy before we submit the candidature application? We had to have public outreach activities. So some of those were held in various regions of Guyana. I'm going to Essequibo, to Berbice, to Linden, to Famoon, to Bartica, and so on. And we met with the representatives of various communities there, mining communities and others. We listened to them, and the feedback that we received were incorporated into the first Guyeiti MSG work plan. All the work plans of the multi-stakeholder group are available on our website. And that is one of the requirements of the EITI standard. It must be publicly available, and we must have a work plan, and we must execute the work plan. The public outreach activities also helped us to interact on various levels with the people in the extractive sector. And we learned from them, of course, quite a lot. So having done all of that, we were ready to submit our candidature application. This was done on in August 2017, just a matter of 6 months after we started. And the application was considered by the EITI International Board in October, and Guyana's application was accepted by the EITI International Board. Guyana became an EITI implementing country on the 25th of October 2017. That means from that date, we were obligated to satisfy the requirements of the EITI standard. One of the major requirements of the EITI standard is to produce reports, produce and publish reports. So our first annual progress report was prepared, the inaugural annual progress report was prepared for the year 2017. That is also publicly available on our website. Then we had 18 months after 25th of October to publish our first EITI report. So we went about that. In order to publish that report, we had to hire, in accordance with the EITI standard, an independent administrator. It's not one person, it's just that service. It's called independent administrator service, and it can be provided by professional bodies through an open bidding process. That process was exhausted with the help of the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board of Guyana. They went through all the requirements here by the laws of Guyana, and they selected the form Moore-Stevens, the UK form. Moore-Stevens commenced preparation of our first report. However, during that period, Moore-Stevens was involved in a merger with another firm, and it became a BDO LLP, one of the largest accounting and auditing firms in the world. Their head office is in UK, and they helped us to prepare the report. Now, this is how the EITI reporting process takes place. We, first of all, request the data and information from the various agencies, government agencies, which are recipients of revenues from the extractive entities. In Guyana, the first report had 6 reporting entities from the government, which are the GGMC, Guyana Gold Board, GRA, Guyana Revenue Authority, Ministry of Finance, the NIS, and the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. National Insurance Scheme is NIS, sorry for those who didn't know. And when we submitted the requested information as much as we could, because remember, disclosure practices in Guyana up to that point wasn't very common here. So we had some challenges. We did not receive all the required information or requested information. So the multi-stakeholder group agreed to work in the best possible way. GTMC submitted its revenue statements. Guyana Gold Board submitted the revenue statements. The Guyana Revenue Authority could not have submitted or did not submit the revenue statements because the laws of Guyana, the Guyana Revenue Act, Income Tax Act states that GRA is prohibited from giving out tax information to unauthorized person, except in cases where the president makes such a request and provides such a waiver. To date, that waiver has not been made, and therefore GRA still cannot provide the information, all of the information that is required for analysis that's not necessary to prepare the EITI report in the best possible way. So again, the multi-stakeholder group decided to see how best they can operate. They took the revenue statements from GDMC and Guyana Gold Board, and they total that up and see who are the largest payers of revenue to the government. And they identify that, and that is where, according to the EITI standard, they determine the materiality threshold. The multi-stakeholder group agreed that for the first report, the materiality threshold should be 75 million Guyana dollars received by the government from GGMC and Guyana Gold Board in total. They could not have included GRA, and I must mention that GRA is the largest recipient of the largest amount of revenues from the extractive sector. So not to include what GRA receives would actually not give you a comprehensive picture or understanding of the revenues received from the extractive sector. We have brought this to the attention of the government, and they seem to be working on it. GRA was also informed, they're aware of it. We have members, actually the Commissioner General of GRA, Mr. Godfrey Station, he is a member of the multi-stakeholder group, and the Deputy Commissioner, Mr. Hema Khan, is also a member of the multi-stakeholder group. But there's nothing they can do because that's the law, and they cannot violate the law. We would not also encourage that. So the laws must be modified, reformed in some way so that we can have the information required to properly prepare the EITI report. So I do hope that in the near future we will get that sorted out, and I'm sure because the government is very adamant and very concerned about transparency and accountability. I've been hearing that all the time, and we do support that. So we are optimistic that we will get that information in the near future to prepare our next reports.
Dr. Jarupat, thank you so much for sharing all this rich information. I like to see if we have some questions from the audience regarding to what you have just shared with us. Is that okay if we take a few?
Absolutely. Any questions?
Perfect, perfect. So you mentioned the GRA information. Here is a question regarding that. If GYEITR report doesn't have the GRA information, how will Guyana pass the EITI review that will happen this year?
Right. Well, as you may know by now, according to the EITI standard, an EITI implementing country is supposed to undergo EITI International Secretariat oversight by the board oversight, to ensure that whatever we're doing are in adherence to the EITI standard and in satisfaction of each one of the requirements of the EITI standard. That process is called validation. Guyana was supposed to undergo the first EITI validation 30 months, like all other countries, 30 months after becoming an EITI implementing country. That would have been April 2020. However, because of the COVID situation, the EITI International Board has made a conscious decision to reschedule the validation of many countries, not only Guyana, because of the COVID. Normally, the team would normally travel to the country where the validation process will take place and go, but because of restrictions, travel restrictions, they cannot travel. So there's a modification in the validation procedures. And Guyana's first EITI validation has been rescheduled to commence on the 1st of July 2021, which is a couple of weeks away from now. So the validation will determine whether that is enough or not. I cannot say that, but there is enough reason to believe that a substantial part of the revenues received from the extractive sector has been disclosed. It is, of course, desirable to have all of it disclosed. So that determination will have to be made by the EITI validation team.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jadupat. We have another question regarding reporting. How is GYEITI planning to have the reports prepared by Guyanese in the future versus always dependent on foreign accounting firms to prepare the reports?
Absolutely, I agree. Everything, local content is the going thing, and we should all benefit from that. However, a level of expertise is required. It must be, you must have the firm or the individuals who are involved in the preparing the report or providing the independent administrative services must have that level of experience, not only the qualifications. I'm sure we have a lot of people with qualifications here, but not many would have been involved in the preparation of EITI reports. However, what I want to say is that not too long ago, we heard that there was a local BDO form registered here, which is the same big UK form, but this is a local Guyanese form. And I think some of the members were actually involved in the preparation of our second report. And we are very happy to know that they are involving themselves in that process. I think they also assisted Trinidad and Tobago to a certain extent in preparing their report. So we are building capacity, local capacity, and we are definitely love for the bids to come in from all these firms, local firms especially, and let the procurement board decide who are the best persons to be given that contract.
Thank you so much for the explanation. I'm sure that it clarified many of the questions surrounding the topic. Now, we have some more questions. Is it okay if we ask one more question before we move on with the rest of your presentation?
Please, I welcome questions anytime.
Great.
24/7.
Great.
Because the EITI process encourages debates, and that's what we're here for. We publish all these reports to encourage more and more debates, and now the debates will be in more informed debates using accurate, verifiable data from the report.
Very true, very true. Now here's the next question. How is the GYEITI Secretariat salaries are funded to ensure there is no conflict of interest with regard to the major stakeholders that include the government, industry, and civil society?
Well, I don't know about the conflict of interest. I can tell you that the salaries are being paid, as I mentioned earlier. We are part of the Ministry of Natural Resources. So our salaries are being paid from the Ministry of Natural Resources. I work on a contract basis. I had a 3-year contract that was changed to a 1-year contract, and now I'm on a month-to-month contract. So that is determined by the Ministry of Natural Resources. I do not have any leverage over that, and my colleague, the deputy coordinator, is also on a contract, and I think the other 2 staff are also on contract. So that's where we are in terms of salary, how we're being paid. And of course, some other countries have donors funding the International Secretariat, but because we are not an independent legal entity, we cannot receive direct funding from anyone. It must go through the Ministry of Natural Resources. Then we are part of them.
Understood. Thank you so much for disclosing that information. Now, the next question is, what concrete evidence can you point to where the EITI process has had a positive impact for the Guyanese people?
I think everything we do here at GYEITI is positive. Positive in the sense that the natural resources that belong to the people, the citizens of Guyana, are being accessed through satisfaction of certain criteria and following certain procedures. Those criteria and procedures are existing in various forms. If you go to the GGMC, for example, website, or the Guyana Forestry Commission website, the Fisheries Department of the Ministry of Agriculture website, you'll be able to download some forms and all of that to see if you want to, let's say, get access to a gold mining concession somewhere, what you have to do. Now, that is something that people used to believe that you have to bribe someone somewhere. Everything is corrupt, and someone would have some political connection that they will pull a string here and pull a string there, and they will go above you. Although you might have the wherewithal to satisfy all the preconditions for accessing that concession, you might not be the one to get it. Someone who might have some political connections might be the one to get it. They pick up the phone and call, "Hi, Minister, okay, all right, we can fix you up." And you got it. So that is what we're trying. The EITI process is to establish a level playing field for all, and to, as best as possible, avoid this discrimination because of favoritism and relationships. So the EITI process helps to create a level playing field for all the investors, whether local or foreign, to be able to have the access in a very fair and equitable manner. So the benefits here, the positive side is that we disclose all these procedures. We are now moving towards having all these applications and licenses published. If you look at our second EITI report, you will see the annexes are published in Excel spreadsheets, Excel format. You see for example, Annex 1.1, you have list of mining licenses for the fiscal year 2018. 1.2, you have a list of mining permits. 1.3, list of prospecting permits for the medium scale. 1.4, you have a list of quarrying licenses. 1.6, you have, it's not in Excel, 1.6 is in PDF format, and those are the claims licenses. So these things were never published like this before. It is the first time that Guyanese are being able to see all the licenses that are published, that are in existence, are published. If you can go online and see them, see who is having where, and then you have the location, the GPS coordinates. So that is something I think is very positive. So those who are serious investors and interested in that, even civil society organizations can go there to see how much these companies that are operating in various parts of the country, how much they are paying in terms of revenues, social expenditure, how much they're helping the communities where they operate. So the EITI report reflects some of that. We want to have more of it become available over a period of time, but we are getting there. And I think we should encourage more and more people, not only to look at the reports that we have online, but also to encourage the other entities to submit the completed reporting templates. I'll get to that probably later on, some of the challenges that we face.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jarupa. With that, let's move on so you can touch base some of the other topics you wanted to tell the audience today. And we do have some more questions, so we're definitely going to pause in a few minutes to take some more questions.
Yes, so I spoke about the capacity building. I spoke about the materiality threshold I was determined. It's not only the amount of revenues that the government received that the multi-stakeholder group of Guyeiti use to determine the materiality. Materiality basically in the EITI standard is stated as or defined as that which, if omitted or misstated, would not provide a comprehensive understanding of the extractive sector. So that means if you have a large amount of revenues not being included in the report, not being disclosed, you will not be able to have the best picture of what is taking place in the extractive sector. So in the second report, the multi-stakeholder group used this criteria. They said, okay, we're going to reduce the materiality threshold to 60 million. That means lower the threshold in terms of the amount of revenues received in total from GGMC, by GGMC and by Guyana Gold Board, put that together and see who paid 60 million and more. We'll ask them to submit to us completed reporting templates, which just say how much they actually paid to the government. So we have what the government received or declare that it received, and then we're going to ask these companies to declare what they paid in accordance with their accounting records. So they'll be asked to submit verified, certified statements of what they paid to the government, and that will cause the independent advocate to do a reconciliation to see whether these amounts that the company said they paid, these big companies, and what the government said they received, if they match. And if they do not match, the investigation will take place of the discrepancies, and the explanation will be sought why these numbers are not matching, and that will be documented in the report. And a report has that. So apart from that 60 million threshold that was received from GGMC and the Guyana Gold Board, they also decided that they will take some of those reporting entities from the first report. So the first report, they had 24 mining entities, which includes 17 mining and 7 dealers, gold dealers, mining companies and 7 gold dealers, and 9 oil and gas companies. That's in the first report, and 6 government agencies. In the second report, we had 47 extractive entities. 22 of them were above the threshold of 60 million. 7 were mining companies holding large-scale licenses. And because if you hold large-scale licenses, it's likely that you would have been able to or required to pay substantial revenue to the government. Although we didn't have the exact amount, we said if you hold large-scale licenses, we expect you to report. The multi-stakeholder group agreed on that, and then there were 7 of the material companies that were asked to report from the first report to submit reporting templates, and they didn't. So the multi-stakeholder group agreed that they will ask those 7 to report in preparation of the second report. So we have 7 entities from the first report were asked to submit reporting templates. Then GRA cooperated a little bit more than before. What they did, they gave us a list. They didn't give us all the names as such. They gave us a list of the top payers, those entities from which they received the highest amount of revenues. And among those, not all of them had or held mining licenses, so they could not have been included in the report. However, 6 of the top GRA payers held and hold mining licenses. So the multi-stakeholder group agreed that it is rational if you pay the large amounts of money to the GRA and you hold mining licenses, obviously we should ask you to report. So they were asked to report. Then they included also 5 gold dealers. The gold dealers have always, most of them have cooperated to the EITI process. And then we have 12 oil and gas companies. All 12 oil and gas companies is mandated by the EITI standard to provide the required information for the preparation of Guyana's EITI report. And we have the full cooperation of all the oil and gas companies, all the petroleum companies. There was no problem with that. So then we have the government agencies now increased from 6 to 9. Those are the same 6: Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, Guyana Gold Board, Guyana Revenue Authority, Environmental Protection Agency, National Insurance Scheme, Ministry of Finance. Then the multi-stakeholder group agreed to expand the scope of the EITI, second EITI report to include Guyana Forestry Commission and Guyana Fisheries, Department of Fisheries, Ministry of Agriculture, and also NISIL, National Industrial Commercial Investments Limited, because they receive the dividends or revenues on behalf of the government from the government's share in the extractive entities like the bauxite companies and so on, in which the government still has shares. And if those shares were realized in that period, they'll be asked to declare those receipts. So that's how NISIL came into play. So those are the 9 government reporting entities. So all of that helped us to put the second report together. As I said, we still have some way to go. We have work to do. And the multi-stakeholder group is very adamant and very constructive in their decision making. And this is how they arrived at the number of entities. 59 entities, private entities, were asked to submit reporting templates. Unfortunately, not all of them did. The mining entities, the mining companies, they did not submit their reporting templates for whatever reason. However, we cannot do anything. The EITI process is for private entities is voluntary. Voluntary. We cannot ask them, we cannot force them to submit. We can encourage them to submit, and the government, if it feels wise, can also ask them to, cooperate with the EITI process, because after all, the natural resources of Guyana, as stated in the EITI principle, belongs to all the citizens and must be used and exploited and explored for the benefits of all the citizens of Guyana. Therefore, to cooperate with the EITI disclosure, we're not asking them to give us money. We're asking them to disclose whatever they paid to the government. And refusing to do that or not cooperating in that regard is left for the citizens of Guyana to discuss or debate and make their conclusions or recommendations. So the second report is out. It was published on the 31st of March 2021. It was scheduled to be published on December, but because of the COVID, there were some constraints that the EITI International Board agreed with, and we scheduled our publication of the second report to be 31st of March 2021, which we did, and the report is publicly available. Now, the next step here is to start preparing for validation, which is the 1st of July. I want to say that the EITI International Secretariat, with the help of the USAID Pan American Development Foundation GYEST project, has provided us with 2 consultants, Ana Maria Rodriguez and Melanie Richards, to help us with the pre-validation preparation. So we are in that process right now. Next thing is we are preparing, or we have already completed the drafts terms of reference for the hiring of our independent administrator to prepare our third report. Guyana's third EITI report is scheduled to be published or mandated to be published by the EITI standard by 31st of December 2021. So we have some months left, 6 months left to get that done. We have yet to hire the independent administrator to help us with that as per the standard. So that is where we are at in terms of the preparation of the third report, our validation process, and some of the other challenges that we're facing with right now is related to requirement 7 of the EITI standard. Requirement 7 of the EITI standard is very clear. It says that the EITI reports would have no meaning, doesn't make sense to have the reports just like that. If those reports or the content of those reports cannot be used or is not being used to create greater public awareness, to create debates among the citizens of Guyana, to talk about whether these numbers are right or wrong, and what is going on, if the revenues are correct, and so on, whether the environment is being replenished or not being used in the best possible way, and it's all in the report in a certain way. But what is important is to get this message across to all the citizens, as many citizens as possible of Guyana in the various communities. Let them know what is going on. So for that now, we have a comprehensive report. It's there online, but we cannot get the message out. So we need to work on our communications strategy, communications plan, and we need to get communications material in the form of brochures, different video materials, different messages out there. Simplify the report, make it more palatable and for the ordinary people out there. So that is where we are lacking. We need a lot of help. The Pan American Development Foundation sought advice to hire a consultant to help us to prepare the communication strategy and to do some of this work, to promote the content of the Guyana first and second EITI reports. So that is where we really are looking forward for help. The Secretariat does not have that capability. As I said, we only have 4 persons here. And our newsletter, we want to get out on a regular basis. It took us more than almost 2 years to get a 4-page newsletter out. So that tells you about the capacity of the Secretariat. And we're still working on it. We need more staff. Writing of minutes here of the meetings sometimes take 3 weeks to write minutes of one meeting. So that is the area in which we have challenges, and we're looking forward to that. We have a video camera, a very powerful and good video camera provided by the Ministry of Natural Resources, but we do not have anyone here who is competent enough to use it. So there we have it. I have the camera here in the drawer. It was on our list of things that we asked the ministry to provide. The ministry did provide it, but then we don't have the competent professional to properly use it, effectively use it, so that we can get videos of our EITI reporting process done and disseminated through our website, through the social media pages that we have. That is something that we have to look into also. The radio messages can be prepared and placed on the radio stations around the country. That is not being done effectively. The website is also a good area in which we made some progress. The website started off in 2017, which is good. Financed and funded by the Ministry of Natural Resources. It's being maintained by the Ministry of Natural Resources, and we're happy for that assistance. It is an independent website, gyeiti.org. However, the quality of the website needs to be improved, and it's supposed to become more interactive. Once again, the USAID PADF GYEST project, which is also part of the assistance provided to the GYEITI, has taken that into consideration, and they have embarked on preparing an updated and upgraded website for the GYEITI, which we hope will come on stream within weeks. It is more interactive. I had a look at it, and we can interact with the public better. So that is a little progress, and we want to see more of that on stream. The
Dr.
Other,
Jadapat, that is wonderful. Thank you so much for updating us on all of these exciting updates. There are some questions that I like to bring to your attention. Is it okay if we move on to the questions and answer section?
yes, yes, questions I always welcome. Anytime,
Very
24/7, as you
good.
said.
Very good.
You can wake me up midnight in the middle of the night and ask me a question, I'll answer you.
Well, that's very gracious of you. And here's the first one. Could you please explain the difference between the MSG's role and that of the National Secretariat? This participant's understanding is that the National Secretariat executes the decisions made by the MSG. Is that correct? And does the MSG receive a salary for participating or a stipend, or is it voluntary?
Yes, that's a very good question. As we all heard earlier, the EITI standard determines how we operate. We don't do things on our own here. We have the EITI standard. It's a very comprehensive standard. This is the EITI standard. It's publicly available on our website. You can get the link, or you can go on eiti.org and download the whole standard and more free of charge. So I encourage you all, everyone, to go on the website, download the standard, read it up a little bit more, and try to understand it also. The multi-stakeholder group is the decision-making body for the EITI implementation process here in Guyana and any other EITI implementing country. They are the central body. They make all the decisions. The Secretariat executes indeed. So I agree with the person who said that yes, the Secretariat execute the decisions of the multi-stakeholder group. We try to do it in a professional way, to package the materials better, to provide the multi-stakeholder group the information they would need to make decisions, to substantiate their decision, and to help them along to understand the relationship between the standard and what they're doing. So we keep guiding each other all the time. We listen to their feedback, so we provide answers as much as possible. We also help them to prepare the documents for all their meetings. And one of the ways in which the multi-stakeholder group operate is that they establish a number of working groups. So from that large number of multi-stakeholder members, they made working groups. For example, we have a communications and outreach working group. We have a data analysis working group, a budget. We have a help to do the work plans and so on. So through all these different working groups, you have a legal, regulatory, and institutional framework working group. These are people who actually provide their services free of charge. And that is one of the requirements, that members of the multi-stakeholder group are supposed to, in writing, agree that they would have the time and would provide the resources, their expertise to do the work of the GYEITI. If you do not have the time and you do not want to give your resources and your expertise to the work of the EITI, then you should consider whether you should volunteer or not. So it's a voluntary process. However, I must say, to the credit of the Ministry of Natural Resources, the Ministry of Natural Resources offered stipends to the members of the multi-stakeholder group. I can attest to this, it is in documents. And however, the multi-stakeholder group made a decision, remember they're the decision-making body, a decision not to accept the stipends. And that was very strange. So there we have it. The stipends were offered, they refused it, and that's it. So now we are faced with the other challenge that the multi-stakeholder group members would come to the meetings and would normally say that they have limited time to review. There's a lot of work, this EITI implementation process, especially the reporting process, and you have to go through documents, pages, hundreds of pages of documents, and come up with recommendations. It will take some time. So, so devote that time. You really have to be, dedicated to your country. However, the government, I think, still has their offer on the table to provide stipends to the members of the multi-stakeholder group. So the multi-stakeholder group can change their decision at any time. And as you know, the MSG was dissolved officially on the 30th of April 2021 after extending its term for an additional 15 months. Now, we are supposed to be in the process of nominating a new MSG. That process is supposed to be, for civil society, supposed to be ensured to be open and transparent by the government. So the government, the Ministry of Natural Resources, they or the champion, the permanent secretary, they are all aware of this. The civil society sector wrote to them. I think the international sector also wrote to the government that this multi-stakeholder group renomination process should be exhausted, should be, taken into consideration in a timely manner. I received a response from the government that they're working on it. So it's something that is a work in progress. So we're looking forward very soon to have the new multi-stakeholder group reconstituted in accordance with the EITI standard. You cannot just handpick, I want you and I want you and I want you, you come here and become. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to advertise in the media so that members from throughout Guyana geographically is very, expansive place here. It's large. And to get people from the mining communities in region 10, region 7, region 8 to come, you have to have time for that. So when you inform them in advance that you're going to have until the end of, let's say, June to submit your nomination, they have to caucus among themselves and decide who are the best persons to nominate. So they need time for that. So this is where the EITI process is very clear. It must be done in an open and transparent manner. So we are awaiting the appointment of a new MSG at this time. However, the outgoing MSG, before it dissolved itself, agreed to put in place a transition team of volunteers from among the MSG members to take care of any business in the absence of an official MSG until the new MSG comes in place. So that is where we're at now. We have a transition team from volunteers taken from the former MSG, and that's what we're working on. So while we're preparing for our validation, the consultants are working with those members of the transition team right now. So that's where we're at in terms of the time, but we want to encourage more and more people, especially from civil society, to come on board, help us here, but make sure you have the time. You cannot be a member of them, or you should not be a member of the MSG, and then come to the meetings, sit down and say, I have to go because I have something else to do. I do not have enough time to read this. I can't do this. That's not the approach. Say it up front. I will not be part of it because I would not have the time. So you have to be able to assess yourself and be honest with yourself and be honest with your colleagues and the citizens of Guyana that you accept this responsibility. You must execute accordingly and respectfully.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jarupat. We are getting close to the end of today's presentation.
Oh, that's very sad.
Yes, it is very sad. Time flies by when you're having a good time. There's one quick last question, and if you could include your closing remarks in the answer, then we would be able to close it out on time. So here it goes. The LISA Phase 1 and LISA Phase 2 field development plans cannot be found online. Are those required to be disclosed as per EITI?
Yes, absolutely. Not only that is not online, a lot of other things are not online. The annexes of the contracts are not online. Annex A, B, C, and D are not online. The contracts are there, but the annexes are not there. And EITI requires the disclosure of all contracts and licenses that are associated with the exploration, exploitation, and use of the natural resources. So if anything is not disclosed, of course, you're not complying with the EITI standard, and you should disclose. We are here for disclosure. The natural resources belong to all the people of Guyana, all the citizens, and they should benefit from it. And the EITI process is basically to disclose and allow for the citizens to have greater awareness and public debates based on the information, accurate, verifiable information. Now, if these things are not disclosed, what is happening? And we see it happening in a lot of these media articles and pronouncements that are being made on social media and other places, that they use concocted, they just assume that these are the numbers. And some of the numbers might be very wrong, might not be, you know, the right numbers. So if you disclose, then you can make sure that these people use the right numbers. Instead, they're using concocted numbers and they're calling numbers out of their head. They're just imagining numbers. So by disclosing, you are eliminating the opportunity for misperception, misconception, and misstatements, and inaccuracy in terms of data and information to the public. So disclosure would give you accurate, verifiable information. So we are in a state whereby people say, oh, we have some percent. We don't know whether it's 15% or 20% or whatever. We don't know the numbers because it's not disclosed. If it's disclosed, and then you can say, no, you're wrong. Look, this is it. So here we go. Lisa phase 1 and phase 2, and all other Lisas and phases should be disclosed and must be disclosed. That is where the interests of the Guyanese people lie, and it's in the best interest of all of us and the whole world, because the trend now is for greater transparency and accountability. And I'm happy that this government is also using the terms accountability and transparency in every instance. And that shows that they're serious. And we want to hold them accountable for that. We want to hold the government accountable. And we also want to hold the companies accountable for disclosing what they're supposed to disclose, because it's in their accounting records what they pay to the government. We're not asking them to disclose their profits or how they do their business. No, we're asking them to disclose what you pay to the government, so that we can compare with the government records, if making sure that the government records reflect accurately what you said you paid. That's all. The reconciliation has to be done. And if you do not get it from the companies, you will not be able to reconcile with the government. And therefore, the people might start to speculate again. And you do not have this accurate information. Oh, I think that company paid you X million of dollars, and your record is showing 5 million, and you're supposed to show 10 million. This might be nonsense. However, in order to verify that, we have to have these documents. Remember, the EITI report is built and prepared on the basis of accurate data and information provided by, certified by the entities. Now, I want to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this Transparency Week. It is indeed a pleasure to participate here. We have a lot more to say, but time does not permit us. We're looking for more Transparency Weeks and events. We want to thank the United States Agency for International Development that hired the Pan American Development Foundation through the Guyana Extractive Sector Transparency project to provide some assistance to GYEITI also. It has been an encouraging relationship that we want to build on. And for you, Kitty, and the organizers, we want to say thank you very much. We have the team there, Mr. Dr. Rina Guyanese. We have our videographer, Mr. Dana Ryan Chan. And we have Winnet Ukart and others behind the scene operating. We want to say that you've done a very good job as of now, and we're looking forward to seeing more activities and participating in a lot of the other items on the program that you have. So once again, my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for this opportunity. I want to also thank the Ministry of Natural Resources for affording us this opportunity to participate. Remember, those are my bosses, the Ministry of Natural Resources. They allow me to participate. So I want to thank everyone for being here and be looking forward for your questions. I want to encourage you finally, please go to our website, guyeiti.org. And our contact information is there. We are here to interact with all of you. All the citizens of Guyana. Write us, email us, call us, and we can answer your questions all the time. Don't be afraid. We are here to interact with you to create more informed debates and greater public awareness about the extractive sectors in Guyana, which is oil and gas, mining, forestry, and fisheries.
Dr. Jadapa, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and all your passion towards the Guyanese people to be able to benefit from all that richness of resources that your country has. And I just want to share the agenda for the rest of today with our dear participants. We have much more in store for you. At 10:30 a.m. this morning, we will continue with commodity trading transparency. Why is it important to Guyana? Then after lunch at 1 o'clock, we will move on to women's brave sojourn in male-dominated industries. Very important topic on gender. I welcome you to come back and join us in the afternoon. Then at 2:30, we will have a panel discussion on working career opportunities in the extractive sector. And then we have a mystery session in the middle of the afternoon. Tune in to learn more about that. And at the end of the day, we will close out at 5 o'clock, starting at 5 o'clock with the extractives and open government. Just for you to know, your link that you used to join the conference today is your link for the remainder of the days and the remainder of today. So we're going to take a short break, but we will be back with you at 10:30 with the commodity trading transparency. Thank you so much for joining. Looking forward to seeing you back. Bye-bye.